thank you for joining. So if you don't know already, our Twitter space is what is the merge and why does it matter? And we're going to cover everything you need to know about the merge and how it will impact you. We're joined by Itamar, our co-founder and CEO, Supherphiz, and Anthony Sassano. So before we jump into the merge, I think it's time we do some introductions. And Itamar, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Edward. So yeah, as Edward said, I'm one of the co-founders at Argent. I'm sure many of you know Argent, but we are very focused on making Ethereum extremely simple, safe, accessible for everyone, while staying fully non-custodial. And so, of course, we are very bullish on this next phase of Ethereum.
Thank you for that. Supherphiz?
Hey, I'm Supherphiz. I call myself the Ethereum Beacon Chain Health Consultant. I'm really just a community member who is very engaged in decentralizing the Ethereum Beacon Chain and promoting best practice in engaging with the chain.
Thank you for that. And we will be covering that in this space if you're interested. And Anthony?
Yeah, I think I'm similar to Supherphiz, just the community member has been around in Ethereum for a while. I do a lot of education through a couple of channels, the Daily Gwei and ETHub, and yeah, especially on Twitter as well. I do, well, probably less education, more shit posting on Twitter these days, but yeah, I'm very active within Ethereum.
Thank you very much for that. So we've made our introductions, and before we explain what the merge is, explaining why we're excited about the merge, we should first explain what the merge is. So Anthony, would you like to do a quick explainer on the merge?
Yeah, for sure. So the funny thing is, it's taken a while for us to get to this point, get to the point of the merge, but the actual merge itself is relatively pretty straightforward. It really is just changing out that proof of work mechanism that we've been using for quite a while now, basically since Ethereum Genesis, for a new mechanism, a new proof of stake mechanism that has actually been running as a separate network called the Beacon Chain since December 1st, 2020. So we're basically merging those two kind of networks, the existing Ethereum proof of work network into the existing Beacon Chain, but ripping out proof of work and just replacing it with proof of stake, and all the benefits that come along with that will be live immediately post merge.
Brilliant. Thank you for that introduction to the merge. I think it's really quite a really good one, actually. And so now we know what the merge is, we should kind of go into why is everyone getting excited about it. So Supherphiz, would you like to explain why?
Why we're excited? Well, so we've been waiting. Well, it was part of Vitalik's original roadmap when he designed Ethereum in like 2014. In 2018, there was a glimmer of hope that it was going to happen very soon. But the plans changed, and we pursued a different route, this multi-client beacon chain approach. And so since then, people have been, really eagerly waiting for it to kind of happen, but it's taken a lot of research and development. And so the merge is a big deal because it will take us off of proof of work, which burns, a considerable amount of energy, onto this proof of stake system that's 99.98% more efficient. It allows us to set the stage for scalability improvements, and it is a more resilient and secure chain than the proof of work model.
Fantastic. Has anyone else got anything else to add?
I think I'm just can just add Supherphiz. I think made a perfect summary. The way I see it is that three things that get people excited. I think the 99.98% efficiency improvement, and so reduce carbon footprint. I think is something a lot of people care about, but also it means opening up the ecosystem to new entrants, whether it's some larger business that wouldn't want to use Ethereum for many use cases. And we saw more and more of that recently, where people wouldn't pick Ethereum, for example, for NFTs because of the carbon footprint issue. So I think that's a real improvement that will be felt by the entire ecosystem. I think the second part is, of course, just the change in issuance model, and basically the impact it will have on people assets. So a lot of people are bullish about that. I don't think that should be the most important one, but clearly it plays a role. And I would say what gets me the most excited, I think Supherphiz hinted at that, is you had so many brilliant engineers working for years on the merge, probably the biggest live software upgrade ever done. And the idea that now all these engineers will be working on something else is actually pretty exciting. So on scalability, on account abstraction, on managing Ethereum state, or reducing node requirement, that's actually insane to think that now we're moving away from this massive upgrade, and we'll finally be able to progress on all the other areas of the roadmap.
Great. Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, we'll go later on. We've got a quick fire round for those who don't know, and we're going to ask what everyone's favorite thing is with the merge and a few other things. So that explains why people are getting excited about the merge. And Itamar, I'd like to ask, is this something that our users have been getting in touch a lot about? How will Argent users be affected by the merge?
So, I mean, the simple answer is that the impact on users is very limited. It's really a change of consensus. I would say our users should not notice it. In reality, if you look really at that moment of transition, what we are contacting all our users to let them know about what's happening, but basically you will see a lot of dApps, a lot of players in the space being very careful around that transition. So you start seeing now exchanges that will pause deposit or withdrawal. In the case of Argent, you will see messaging in app while the merge happens. You could still do layer one transaction, but we'll probably suggest you don't do them during the transition period. The same way layer twos like zk Sync will pause the network during the transition. So we can be talking anything between 10 minutes and an hour, depending on how cautious the various actors will be. If everything goes as planned, basically users will not notice it, but we will suggest basically to not interact with the network for the 30 minutes or hour around that time.
Great, thank you for that. I think that will answer a lot of people's questions. So expect minimal disruption, possibly maybe a small issue on L2, but nothing major. So just avoid making any important transactions during the time of the merge. Anthony, will people need to do anything to their ETH during the merge, or will they just keep the same ETH they have in their wallet and it will just be available for the proof of stake network, or will they need to swap anything?
No, the transition's being done as smoothly as possible, as it possibly can, so that the disruption to end users is basically non-existent, and that end users don't really have to do anything. I've had this question come my way a fair few times now from a fair few people, and I always say to them, look, if you want zero exposure to the merge, then the only way to have zero exposure to the merge and merge risk is to not have any assets on Ethereum at all, right? Because it is a consensus layer change. It does affect the entire network. So if something was to go wrong, it would affect literally everything. It doesn't matter if your ETH was in a certain smart contract and not in another certain smart contract. It would still affect you because of the fact that it is a network-wide change. But in saying that, I suspect that issues, while kind of like possible, aren't probable, and I just feel like that the easiest or the least path of resistance for users is just to do nothing. And as Itamar said, maybe 30 minutes to an hour around the merge transitions, just don't do any transactions if you want to play it really, really safe. But even that shouldn't be a requirement if the merge goes through successfully, as we all expect it will. So yeah, really the whole thing's been constructed in a way that is as minimal disruption as possible to end users.
Sit back and relax, and everything will be fine. So one thing that's really important about moving to proof of stake is the importance of Ethereum being decentralized and secure. And there are many ways and many things that we can do to do that. One of which is running a validator. And I think Supherphiz, you'll be the best to kind of talk about this. So how easy is it for a non-technical person to run a validator? And if you have 32 ETH, which we admit is a high barrier of entry, should you run a validator?
That's a great question. And so the real strength of Ethereum comes through being a decentralized network. And that's not just because it's robust against failure. One of the biggest values of decentralization is that nation states and corporations can look at the network and say, if it's really decentralized, then I can put my business there. But if it's sort of pseudo decentralized, then they look at it and they kind of view it as a farce or a joke, or what we call LARPing, live action role playing. Like, it's not really a thing they'd want to use. So what I've really encouraged the community to do is take responsibility for decentralizing the network, and that is by getting validators in home. Like, anyone who has 32 ETH, or if you have some capital, rather than locking it up with an exchange or a pool, who will then, whether we like it or not, they're going to centralize the network. If you keep that in your home, you can validate from your home, and increase the value of Ether by promoting a decentralized network. And so the big question is, how hard is it? I like to say that if you're a relatively tech savvy person, you can spend a Saturday and a cup of coffee and figure it out. It requires, depending on how you do it. So like if you are a GUI kind of person, there are platforms like DAppNode, Avado, and Ethereum that give you a full GUI experience. If you are comfortable with a Linux command line, you can find guides by Samarasat and by Cashew, and those guides are extremely extensive at like walking you through every step of setting it up. I would say for most people right now, I'm most comfortable for solo stakers with 32 Ether, probably using DAppNode right now because it does have the GUI interface and because they've been really progressive about helping us with client diversity and promoting the health of the network. So yeah, I'm not going to say anyone can do it, but I will say a lot of grandmas have done it. So it really depends on your commitment. And if you want your Ether to become more valuable, then one of the best ways you can do that is by staking from home.
Funny that's interesting. I didn't realize there was many grandmas doing that. So there we go. Anyone can do it, really. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing a load of resources, because I was going to ask you that anyways. We will be sharing a recap later on after we've done this Twitter space, so you'll find links and more information afterwards in case you miss anything. Anthony, I've seen that on Twitter. I think earlier today you posted something about running a validator, or validators actually. How have you found the experience?
Yeah, so I've been running validators since basically Beacon Chain Genesis, and as I mentioned before, that was on the 1st of December 2020. The experience in the process actually wasn't too hard for me personally because I have experience with things like command line and you know, using the command line to set up various pieces of software and things like that. So yeah, for me personally, it wasn't that cumbersome, but I think for a lot of people initially it definitely was, because it was in things that they just hadn't used before, and they were obviously worried because there was real money on the line and all these sorts of stuff. But over the years, you know, since the Beacon Chain went live, there has been a number of different solutions that have come to the market now, for especially for solo stakers, and Supherphiz mentioned a bunch of them that I think has made the process a lot easier, a lot smoother, but we still have a lot of work to get to the point where it can be as easy as possible for people to solo stake. But I think, you know, for someone like me, definitely way more experienced than the average user, I've just found it relatively easy. But I still like go through the process myself and think, wow, you know, if I was a regular user that had no experience with the command line, I would probably not be able to do this, and I would probably think it was too risky, because as I said, at the end of the day, this is real money on the line here, and people don't want to be making mistakes. They don't want their validators going offline or get bashed, and there are always risks associated with it. Even though you're getting rewarded for staking, there are still those risks, which I think a lot of people get scared of, especially if things look super alien to them and they have all this, you know, command line stuff going on their screen. They're going to be less inclined to solo stake. So I think that the solutions that Supherphiz mentioned, such as DAppNode and other ones, are doing a lot of great work here to make the process way less alien, so that we can actually have you know, lots and lots of grandmas staking from home.
We want grandma staking is what we've gathered from this Twitter space so far. In fact, someone from our team wrote a post on a non-technical guide on how to run a validator, and since they've been running the validator since December, they've moved home and done all sorts of different things with it. So I think it's probably worth getting Graham to write a part 2 to kind of address some of those things that you brought up. But how can people check how many validators there are on the Ethereum network, and how does that compare to other proof of stake chains? Because I've heard critiques of proof of stake about it not being secure, and other proof of stake blockchains being insecure. So I wonder if there's a way we can check validators and how it compares to other blockchains.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of resources that can be used online to check these sorts of things. So you can check number of validators, number of active validators and participation rate. You can check the distribution of pools and where the stake is actually sitting. But I think at the end of the day, just looking at the raw numbers doesn't tell the whole story at all, because there's a lot of nuance when you think about, you know, centralization or decentralization of stake. And I think that a lot of those discussions have been had over the past, I think, month or so due to the Tornado Cash sanctions. And I also think there's a lot of nuance in the punishments that are enacted by the network. You know, in protocol, we refer to it as kind of like slashing or inactivity leaks for things that are done on the network that's done. So yeah, I mean, the resources themselves, I mean, there's Dune Analytics dashboards that people can look at, Nansen dashboards, there's the Beacon Chain Block Explorer, there's Beacon Scan, there is clientdiversity.org for the client diversity side of things, and there's a bunch of other sites there as well. Supherphiz would probably know some of the ones I'm forgetting right now. But when looking at that sort of stuff, as I said, it's very nuanced. Like, people like to look at the raw numbers and draw conclusions from that. Like, for example, you can say, oh, well, these big exchanges have X% of the stake, when in reality, yes, they have that, but the thing is that, if they were to do something wrong in protocol, they would get slashed or get punished for that, right, by the protocol for doing that. So I think people aren't used to that kind of line of thinking, because in proof of work, there really isn't any of that. The only punishment in proof of work, if there was an attack, would be to change the entire hashing algorithm, right? There's no quote unquote slashing in proof of work. So I think that, yeah, when looking at those numbers, people should definitely look at the nuance there. But I'm curious for Supherphiz's take here, because this is something that we sometimes disagree on, I think, in discussions around centralization of stake and stuff like that. But yeah, Supherphiz, feel free to add to anything I've said there.
Yeah, that is probably you and I've told you this before, you're probably the person I'm most aligned with in probably the whole ecosystem. But we do have this kind of difference about the need for decentralization now. And I'm really of the school that we shouldn't wait until we're in a decentralization crisis to build robust decentralization. And my primary reason for that really is this, aside from network robustness, which I want to mention in a second, my primary reason for that is really this this credible neutrality, this value that decentralization gives to nation state actors when they're looking at a network and they're asking, is this a valuable thing, or is this a few companies who are propping something up to try and sell a product? And the only way that we really prove that we are a robust and immutable chain is by this high decentralization. And so I look at pools, and while I support their role in the net, I really view them as second-class citizens to home solo stakers. I really feel like the backbone of what we're doing is getting as many validators as we can in people's homes, and that's the thing that's credible decentralization.
That leads us nicely into our next question. If you haven't got 32 ETH, how can you keep Ethereum secure? Is there anything that you can do?
Yeah, so
you go, Supherphiz. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone can run a node, and at this point, that's going to be an execution client and a consensus layer client at their home. And one of the things that can do is listen to network traffic and filter out garbage traffic. That can by itself can improve the efficiency and decentralization of the network. And I don't want to exaggerate the value of that. It is helpful, but it's not really participating as a block proposer. But one of the things I would really encourage people to do, if you have the hardware, go ahead and run a node, because you might that over time it's something that you're really suited for. Yeah, so do that. But the next thing we're looking at are what are the staking options for people with less than 32 Ether. And most people are familiar with liquid staking derivatives. These are pools where you can send your money and they give you a staking token. One of my concerns with them is they're primarily centralized. That is, they take your money and they are likely to stake that with 8 or 10 or 20 operators.
Yeah, fantastic. But if you were to run a node, what you're talking about the hardware requirements? Does it require much?
No. So in fact, I just tweeted my recommended stack, and it's really simple. It is an Intel NUC. I really do suggest gigs of RAM and a 2 terabyte hard drive, which is kind of an overkill, but you can get that whole stack for $1,000, and it's about 4 inches by 4 inches. So that is what many home stakers use. It's a really robust and easy to use setup. Yeah, so it works like a charm.
Fantastic. And we spoke a little bit about liquid staking. What liquid staking options are there available at the moment?
So there are about 5, and I'll mention them as best of what I know about them. Lido currently controls about 30% of the network, and because of that, we're encouraging people to choose other solutions that are less centralizing. Rocket Pool has about 1.6% of the network share. They have the RETH token, and that is the one that at least for the foreseeable future, I'm very excited about promoting. Then there are things like Swell Network and two of them have slipped my mind. I just spoke with Swell recently. Anthony, help me out.
Stakewise is one of them.
Stakewise, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and SSV Network is the other one, maybe, or maybe there's another one I'm forgetting right now. Anchor, there's a few of them out there. I mean, there's a fair few of them, but Stakewise is the other popular one, I think.
We're really looking at the design of those. Like, what is the design of the system that allows people to stake fractionally? And the thing we're looking for in that design is trustlessness and permissionlessness. So we want, number one, when you deposit, we don't want any person to have control over your Ether. We want it to be controlled completely by smart contracts. And second, we want permissionless operation. That means that anyone in the world can fire up a validator with maybe less than 32 Ether and support stakers. And that, again, is why I'm so heavily or so excited about what Rocket Pool provides.
Anthony, how do staking rewards change? I think they're going to increase, but could you correct me or expand a bit on that?
Yeah, so currently the only rewards that stakers are getting are from basically network rewards or block rewards, as they're called. So that is at around 4.5%-ish, and that will go down as more ETH is staked on the network, or it will go up as less ETH is staked, or more, sorry, I should say ETH is withdrawn. But that's not actually happening at the merge. That's happening after the merge in a separate upgrade. But in terms of the rewards going up, so post-merge, there will be two additional ways that people will be getting rewards. They'll be getting the unburnt fee revenue. So obviously with EIP 1559, there are two portions to the fee. There is the base fee, which is completely burnt, and then there are tips which go directly to the stakers, or I guess like the miners right now, and then the stakers in the future. And then there will also be an MEV portion, and that is kind of very, very hard to estimate because we don't know exactly what it's going to look like post-merge, and estimates can vary wildly, and also, the profitability can vary wildly depending on a number of different factors. Same is true for fees, because obviously fees can go up and down like a yo-yo. If the market's really hot, the fees will go up a lot. If the market's quiet, as we've seen, the fees will be down. So I think the latest estimates I saw were like 5.5% to 6% with just the fee revenue, and then you add a little bit of MEV on top of that, and that's an ETH denominated yield, right? That's not a stable coin denominated yield or anything like that. But as I said, it's difficult to give accurate estimates because of the fact that these are yearly yields, right? Whereas the fee revenue and the MEV revenue is so volatile that it becomes difficult to quantify that over a longer time frame. So I think for me, the way I look at it, I just look at the rewards you get from the network themselves, and then anything else on top of that is basically a bonus. And I don't look at that and think, okay, well, this is guaranteed to stay like this, because it's not, right? Because it's so variable. So I just look at the network rewards themselves. But people can expect a boost. Stakers could expect a boost in yields post merge because of the unburnt fee revenue and the potential MEV revenue as well.
Thank you for that explanation. We've had quite a few people ask about it, and it's good to provide some clarity. I think you really did a really good job there. So if you are going to be staking, you'll see a boost in rewards, but that will be variable. So moving on to our next topic, Itamar. I've seen a lot on Twitter about proof of work, a proof of work fork after the merge, and all these other little things around there. People saying, what is it? They're asking questions around it. So I just want to know, what is this potential ETH proof of work fork?
So, I mean, first, what it is, it would be a bunch of miners deciding to not switch to proof of stake, and instead they would keep running the old proof of work chain. And so, that would be the short answer. There's a long list of stuff that is likely to break, a lot of dependencies, and so far we don't see much indication that there's proper work being done on that proof of work potential chain, basically.
And so will Argent support a potential fork or any other?
So we are in wait-and-see mode. So right now, the working hypothesis is that it won't happen. I saw recently someone sharing that the last pull request on the repository like 2 or 3 weeks ago, chain ID weren't set. A lot of stuff that would be needed weren't set, basically. So we worked from the assumption that it won't happen. We saw that the main stablecoin will support the new chain, the main marketplace, etc. So if that happens, we can then reassess in the future. But the working assumption right now is that we have a smooth transition to proof of stake.
Fantastic, and I think it's important to clarify that this potential fork or forks, you won't get an airdrop in a sense. Could you expand a bit more on that? Because we've seen a lot in our Discord actually about a potential airdrop and stuff like that.
No, so the way it works is you have a transition at a certain block to the new proof of stake consensus, but miners could decide to run the old chain. So whatever state was at that block remains, and then we continue the chain from there. So from a technical perspective, protocols, smart contracts, your Argent wallet, your ETH, your tokens, they are all there on that old chain. You don't need to get airdropped. You just have a certain state on that chain. And it would continue its own life.
Supherphiz, Anthony, do you guys have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, the proof of work forks, like there's not just one of them, right? There's a few of them, and I think that they're all pretty much money grabs. They're completely pointless. Everything's going to break on them because they're not going to have any support. Like the stable coins are all going to go to zero. There's not going to be any infrastructure support, and it really is going to be just, I think, a race of people trying to sell their forked coins for whatever they can get for them. So my general advice to people around this is that if you want to take advantage of it, just be sure that you know what you're doing and know what you're interacting with, and be very, very vigilant, because there's going to be people trying to scam you, of course, as I guess like there always is in crypto, but there'll probably be a heightened risk here through that. But in general, none of those forks are going to affect the Ethereum proof of stake chain. Like that's just going to continue as normal. All the apps are going to be there. All your assets are going to be there. So I wouldn't worry about that. But in terms of the actual fork chains, I do think they're all just money grabs. And if you want to take advantage of that, feel free to, but just know the risks while going into it.
Yeah, I would like to follow it up by saying this is not free money. You're not getting free ether. You are essentially getting paid to participate with someone else's agenda, and that agenda is like, the idea is to promote proof of work beyond our transition to proof of stake. And so, I would ask you, do you want to participate in someone else's agenda? It's not free money. It is selling your time, your effort, your energy, and putting your funds at risk, potentially at risk. And I'm not guaranteeing lots of funds, but it is engaging with some sort of risk to get money. It is not like free.
I've seen a little bit about replay attacks. Can you expand on that?
Go, please.
I was going to say a replay attack is one way to spread FUD. I don't really think that we're going to encounter replay attacks. I do discourage people from engaging with these fork chains, but that's really I don't expect an attack. A replay attack would require that they use the same chain ID. They would, Ethereum is chain ID 1, but really any. I don't want to call them a credible fork because I don't really think that there are credible forks, but any fork that's likely to get past the drawing board is going to use a different chain ID.
I'm glad you got that covered. I think that covers everything with ETH proof of work. Is there anything you guys want to talk about the merge before we go into our quickfire round?
I guess I just wanted to mention like how close it is, right? I mean, I think a lot of people are probably finally realizing just how close it is. I mean, less than 9 days away. The last time I checked, which was probably 5 minutes ago. So we're very, very close. It's a very, very exciting time. I think my advice to people, just keep their wits about them. Things can get volatile in the markets. Things can get obviously very hyped up on Twitter and stuff like that. But in terms of the merge itself, it's being tested so much. There's been multiple public test nets, multiple shadow forks, multiple private test nets, just so much stuff going on to test this thing. And we have very strong kind of like confidence and guarantees around this thing actually working, going through just fine. And a successful merge is one where users don't really feel that anything has changed, which is amazing, right? It's really amazing that we can change Ethereum's core engine, right, live without users feeling anything. If that all happens as we expect it will, I think it's going to be one of the most historic things in crypto. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I hope everyone's excited about it because we are just so close now.
It is very close and it's very exciting. One thing that we're doing at Argent is preparing our memes. I'm sure everyone's got their memes ready. We've had many years to prepare for this. So I think it's going to be a very fun week. And I suppose it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Anthony, that when it comes to this, when it comes to the merge, you can sit back, relax, and you don't have to do anything. It's all going to happen, and it's going to be fine. So Yeah. So let's get into our quickfire round. I'll try and get all of you to answer each question apart from the first one. And Anthony, this is another question you've been asked an awful lot of times on Twitter. Does the merge reduce gas fees?
You know, this question's fun because if I want to be technically correct, I have to say yes or potentially yes, right? And I'll just quickly explain why. So the merge itself has not been architected as a way to increase the scalability of the Ethereum layer 1 network or increase the throughput of the Ethereum layer 1 network. But because block times post-merge are going to be 12 seconds instead of around 13 seconds, there will naturally be around an 8% throughput increase, which could lead to a small, slight, a barely noticeable reduction in gas fees. So the most technically correct answer is yes, but if it's anything that users feel, then no, right? The thing that reduces gas fees and increases the scalability and throughput of Ethereum are layer 2s, which we have plenty of them these days. People have definitely used them, you know, your Arbitrum and your Optimisms and everything around that. So, no, the technical answer is that, there is a technical reason why gas fees could get reduced by the reduced block times, but the practical answer is no, it does not reduce gas fees.
I thought you'd like that question, as I've seen you answer it quite a few times on Twitter. And you can use other layer 2s like ZK Sync and StarkNet with Argent. I thought I'd plug them there.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many. I didn't want to spend like 5 minutes naming them all. It's crazy how many there are now.
It's crazy. Soon people will never, ever, ever interact with layer 1, which is pretty exciting when you think about it. For our second question, I'd like everyone to answer this one. Are you having a merge party or celebration at all? Itamar.
So good question. Edward, do we have a merge party that the team is organizing? I'll push the question to you. I don't think we are. We are planning a lot of communication with users, but because the entire team is gathering the week after, I'm afraid the merge is 3 days too early.
That is quite sad. I was hoping that the merge would be slightly delayed for our offsite event, but I can't change that, and I'm very excited about the merge. So, Supherphiz, are you doing anything?
Yeah, actually, ETHStaker, which is the group that I work with, along with Anthony from the Daily Gwei, this guy in here, and David Hoffman from Bankless, we're all getting together on the Ethereum Foundation YouTube channel. And I posted links on Twitter and Reddit, and we'll be hosting a painting party that begins 2 hours before the merge. That's through POAP Canvas, where people can drop pixels to create art, and then that will be like a way to memorialize the merge. And then we will visit with researchers, developers, and implementers throughout the merge process. So yeah, I'm super stoked about it.
Fantastic. So if you've not got anything to do, you don't know what you're going to do, you can join this stream. I would ask you, Anthony, but you're attending the same event. Another fun question, Rocket Pool or Lido? Anthony?
This is a fun question because I'm not going to actually answer it. I think that I echo what Supherphiz said before, though. Like, Lido already has a pretty big dominance on the network. So if you care about Ethereum, the Ethereum beacon chain's health and decentralization, then at this point in time, I definitely recommend people to go with Rocket Pool instead of Lido. But that's not to say that Lido is a bad solution. Obviously, they have a product that people love. But at this point in time, they have too big of a share of the network. So I would like to see Rocket Pool get more share there.
Supherphiz?
Yeah, like Anthony, I welcome diverse network participants. I would love to see, tens of hundreds of staking token participants. Above that, I would much rather see home stakers. I would rather see grandmas and grandmas staking. But yeah, between Lido and Rocket Pool, Lido right now has 30% of the network. That's too great a share for any one participant, and they have about 20 operators, which is less decentralization. I really do love Rocket Pool for, right now they have 1.6% of the network share, and they have 1,400 node operators, which is just huge.
Supherphiz, now question actually, to get more home stakers, I think we need to do two things, in improving the UX, and you mentioned DAppNode and others. So I think there's a clear path there. How do we reduce the 32 ETH? That's really the next bottleneck. How do we get to 16 or even 8? Every opportunity to reduce the staking amount means we get more solo stakers, basically.
Yeah, that's you hit the two nails on the head. Right now, the thing that I'm most focused on is encouraging anyone who has any ability to improve the staking UX. I will confess loudly that the staking UX is weak and unwelcoming to people who are ready to stake 32 Ether. Until it is as simple as plugging in a toaster, I'm going to continue to say we need something better. We've engineered complexity away, things like cell phones and smart cars, but we need to do the same thing with staking. You're right, beyond that, especially in the coming 5 or 8 years when Ether is likely to become very valuable, it will be prohibitive for people with less than 32 Ether. And I really feel like that's not something I'm ready to push now, but I do believe that it's something that will evolve naturally in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, I would just add to that realistically, like getting that 32 ETH down would depend on a bunch of technical things. Like the 32 ETH requirement is based on the amount of validators that the network can handle. So if we want to reduce that down as much as possible, we basically just need to make the network more capable of running more validators. Essentially, that's from my understanding. So I think that that's definitely going to happen eventually, but it's probably not coming anytime soon, unfortunately. So I think Supherphiz hit the nail on the head with making staking as easy as plugging in a toaster. I think that's what we can focus on right now.
We have right now 420,000 validators. No other network design can support 420,000 validators. Now, that's not to say we have 420,000 individual operators. We really have about 10,000 nodes. So, many of those nodes are running more than one validator. But the design of the network is that we could have those 500,000 people operating individual nodes, each running one validator. And that's kind of my fantasy of what a truly decentralized network would look like.
I know you've been sharing some validators, like validating at home setups. Have you got a favorite?
Oh yeah, the infosexual, the share of the Airstream validating over Starlink. That just blows my mind. But my real favorites, honestly, are those plain nucs that come in, because that tells me that normal people are doing this. And that's really the value. Just normal people who made it a point in their life to get 32 Ether, and they're staking from a nook. Those excite me every day.
You've got your grandma staking in the everyday setups. We know the merge has been battle tested throughout testnets and so on, but could the merge go wrong, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk, right? I think there is always a possibility. It's all about what's probable. In the worst case scenario of something going wrong with the merge, it would require a lot of things to go wrong. And this is because we have a multi-client architecture in Ethereum where there are multiple consensus layer and multiple execution layer clients. And thankfully, the client diversity is very good on the consensus layer. It is not very good on the execution layer, though. But yeah, we have all these kind of multiple clients. So if there was a major bug in one of the consensus layer clients, it wouldn't, at this point in time, affect the kind of finalization of the network because of the fact that we have that client diversity in place. Now, in saying that, let's say worst case, everything breaks and the transition doesn't happen at all, and the chain just halts and stops doing anything. Well, I mean, that can happen, right? In absolute worst case, and that would require human intervention to, I don't know, roll back the chain or restart the chain or do something like that. And that would obviously be very, very bearish. It would just it would be catastrophic. Everyone would be like, "Why? How did that happen?" Right? Just because it's so unlikely to happen, and we've kind of like tested all these scenarios and things like that. So that would be the worst case. In terms of like less worst case or kind of like less bad cases, I mean, I personally expect there to be a small portion of the network that just falls offline immediately post merge because they've misconfigured their validators, or they haven't set up their validating clients correctly, or they haven't set up their connection between the execution and consensus layer clients correctly. And we've already seen that happen on testnets. We saw it happen today on the beacon chain itself with the Bellatrix upgrade. About 5% of the network fell off, which is totally fine because the network keeps chugging along. And then those will slowly come back online because there's real money on the line. If they're offline, they're losing real money. So yeah, in terms of going wrong, there, as I said, like the network has been built in such a robust way that it would require a catastrophic failure for the worst case scenario to play out. And in terms of just validators falling off the network, then the network is resilient enough to just keep chugging along. Unless we had the majority falling off, then we would basically have no blocks being produced. And then if we have, I guess, 34% fall off, we would stop finalizing. But that's getting into the very technical weeds. But yeah, as you can see, it's actually hard to find the cases where the merge would actually not work at all, right?
Fantastic. Thank you for clarifying that, which is interesting because I'm kind of thinking about what will traditional media pick up about the merge, because it's one of the most exciting things that happens with Ethereum for such a long time, and it's so exciting that we're living through it. So what do you think traditional media will pick up on most? For example, it could be the environmental angle, it could be the ETH tokenomics, it could lead to a wider discussion about proof of work versus proof of stake. Itamar.
I think what I mentioned before. What gets me really the most excited is all the R&D and engineering that now can move to other aspects of Ethereum. And when a few months ago Vitalik shared this broader roadmap, with the purge, the surge, etc. I think in the beginning people thought it was like a linear roadmap. We even thought that one step after the other. Then we started realizing that a lot of those initiatives were on the way. And so I think now I'm actually getting even more excited about what's the next fork, what's the next upgrade, because they are all quite tangible, with very big tangible benefits for users.
Supherphiz, what do you think?
I'll tell you, I've said this before. I have not always been an environmentalist. I have many years. I've been a person who mined with GPUs and ASICs, and I have used a lot of electricity. But in the past 5 years, I've become much more aware of the environmental impacts that cryptocurrency has on the planet. And I actually take that seriously. It's one of the reasons that I align so deeply with Ethereum. And so I hope the thing that media takes away is that Ethereum is an environmentally friendly community. Not just our chain, but we as a community are moving toward environmental friendliness, and that we want to provide a product that benefits everyone, not just creating coins that make us rich. Like, that's not why we're here. We're here to provide for humanity and the environment.
Anthony, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just say that the mainstream media will like to position things or report on things that are very simple and very easy for their readers to understand. I really do think they're going to focus on the energy use narrative, and the kind of fact that we've reduced it by so much. I expect to see that talked about the most, because it really is the simplest and easiest thing for them to explain to their readers, and it really is, one of, if not the most impactful things that the merge brings with it.
That leads us really nicely into our next question, which is, do you think this 99.98% energy reduction after the merge will actually convert people into crypto and Ethereum more broadly?
I think it will have a pretty decent impact. I think we've already seen pockets of this play out over time, where obviously within the NFT mania, it brought in a lot of new people, and these people were actually very conscious and very concerned about the energy usage of Ethereum as a proof of work network. So they actually gravitated towards some of these proof of stake networks, such as the Polygon POS chain. I think Tezos managed to garner a lot of support for NFTs there, and a few other ones here and there. So I definitely do think it has an impact, and I do think there are a large group of people, especially younger people, especially in their early 20s or even younger than that, who are much more plugged into sort of stuff and care much more about it and actually take action. I mean, there's all, it's all well and good for people to say things, but most people don't tend to take action. But I've noticed that especially the NFT crowd definitely cares about this sort of stuff. So I do think that it will convert more people to Ethereum. They'll feel good about using Ethereum, and they won't have to kind of like have at the back of their minds, oh my, it's using all this energy, I don't want to support something like this. And I think it will be a really big boon for Ethereum, definitely.
Itamar, what do you think about that?
I'm extremely convinced, especially on the business adoption of Ethereum. So I would say it's anecdotal evidence. I've seen firsthand businesses not choosing Ethereum. Actually, the few example was with Tezos, exactly, where people would go to Tezos for that simple and that exact reason and nothing else. So it does scare business away. Sometimes because they're believers, sometimes it's just they can expose themselves to such project, and sometimes it's really part of their internal policy, and they are not allowed. They have to always optimize for environmental impact in their choices. It's part of the criteria. So I think it will have a significant impact on business adoption of the technology.
I'm inclined to agree, and I think we're going to be doing quite a bit of environmental content going forward. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how much this narrative change is going to help bring crypto to the masses. So another thing that's been talked a lot about at the moment as well, and it's more of a fun question, this one, is do you think the merge will act as a catalyst for the flippening? Sassano, what do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the Ethereum's move to proof of stake has always been one of the things at the top of my list, if not the top of my list of things that Ethereum needed to deliver on in order to have like this flippening play out. And I think that for a number of different reasons, but in terms of actual market impacts, I mean, at the end of the day, post-merge, Ethereum is going to be issuing a lot less new Ether than Bitcoin issues new BTC. That alone, I think, is going to have a large impact. But that's just one of the strict first order effects. There are a bunch of other things around that, and it's not just the merge; it's everything happening within Ethereum, of course, like the layer 2 stuff as well, that have all just fed into making Ethereum such a strong network, and Ethereum continues to grow and continues to get better. That I think just basically makes the flippening an inevitability. I mean, I've not been shy about being bearish on Bitcoin for quite a while. I haven't owned any BTC for a long time. And I think it's mainly because I'm a technologist at heart. And I just think that Ethereum is such a valuable technology and it has so much value that it provides already and will provide in the future, that everything that we're doing to upgrade the network just kind of scales that even more out and makes the flippening more and more reality as time goes on.
Supherphiz, what do you think?
To be honest with you, I think the flippening is overblown. I think that we've already surpassed Bitcoin in every valuable metric, and I think it's a waste of our time and effort to look in the rearview mirror at an older project. Like, we should be setting our sights forward and making Ethereum as awesome as it can be, and not spending our time competing with another chain.
I like that answer a lot, actually. So the merge is almost here. If you had to pick one thing about it, what's getting you the most excited about Ethereum and the merge?
Oh, Fizz, you go first.
Most excited? That's hard. I don't mean to repeat the narrative, but I have to say it is talking to people with a straight face and saying honestly that Ethereum is healthy for the environment, that it uses less energy than the traditional banking industry. When I have a niece who scowls at me every time I talk about Ethereum because she believes that I'm contributing to global warming, and I'm like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be a good steward of our environment. I want to be able to proudly talk about Ethereum to people, and that, to me, that's the biggest takeaway from the merge.
Yeah, I would just say that I can't actually pick one thing. So I think if I had to, the one thing I'm most excited about is the fact that it's just happening after so long. I mean, I've been in it since early 2017. As Supherphiz mentioned earlier, the move to proof of stake has been on the roadmap since day one of the white paper. So it has been a very long time coming. So I am just super excited that it is actually happening, and it is actually happening in like less than 9 days. It's gonna definitely make crypto, I think, enter a new era. I've said before, and that's what I'm definitely most excited for.
Okay, for our final question for today's space, what are you all looking forward to after the merge in terms of Ethereum development? Itamar?
I would say the two areas where we get the most excited at Argent, one is, of course, icon abstraction. So we're doing a lot of work on L2s with Starknet and ZK Sync, but I think bringing better UX and better security to non-custodial wallet across L1, but also other EVM chain will be a massive boost for Ethereum. And then all the work on data availability, because that direct impact on cost and scalability of L2 ZK rollups that we use. So these are probably the two initiatives that are already progressing quite well, that get us the most bullish.
Supherphiz, what are you most excited for?
I kind of want to give a non-answer. I do have a real answer. I'm not going to give it. My non-answer is that I think it's really time for everyone to just kind of zoom out and appreciate where we are, and maybe give the implementers a chance to take a week off. I'm definitely going to take a month off. So I'm most excited, even developmentally, for everyone to kind of zoom out, recalibrate, and just renew their focus on the big picture.
And Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I echo exactly what Fizz said there. I was going to say, after the people take that break, recharge their batteries, the merge is kind of like all settled in. I'm just really excited to see the core researchers and developers begin work on all of the other things on the Ethereum roadmap, because I think the merge itself has been such a monumental undertaking for such a long time now. Everything else is basically taking a back seat to it. And I think that the core devs and researchers themselves are especially excited about working on things other than the merge at this point. So yeah, I'm hoping that they get a good rest and recharge after the merge goes through, and they can come back ready to execute on the rest of the Ethereum roadmap, because it is definitely a long one.
Lots of exciting things to look forward to. So that concludes our Twitter space. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. Thank you for our speakers. Is there anything that you guys want to plug before we end the space?
I think Fizz demoted himself to a listener. I'll do it for him. I'll plug our merge mainnet live stream that we're going to be doing. You can find that. Go to Supherphiz's Twitter profile and you can get on there. That'll be happening for the merge, and it'll be like the main live stream that is being kind of done around the merge there. But other than that, I mean, I guess like go follow Supherphiz. He's an awesome follow on Twitter for all things staking. If you want, you can follow me as well. As I said earlier, though, all I do is shit posts. So probably not the best follow on Twitter, but you can go follow my work at the Daily Way. But Fizz, did you want to plug anything? I plugged you a bit there, but
yeah. Well, so Sasso's very humble. I actually listened to his Daily Gway episode practically every day. And while I'm kind of laser focused on the beacon chain, Sasso has a much broader view of the whole ecosystem. And so there's no way I can keep up with what's going on, but checking out the Daily Gway is super valuable. And that, I promise you, we're not like just cross promoting each other. It's just that we have very aligned content. So I think you'll enjoy it.
The Daily Gway is great, and I love seeing Argent features on it. So we've got listeners, we've got watchers actually, Anthony from the Argent team. Itamar, is there anything you want to push?
I think we spent an hour pushing all the great stuff. So now I would say make sure to try awesome new ZK rollups out there. So I would encourage you to try Argent X to test Darknet, and of course our ZK Sync integration on our mobile app.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. We will do a recap and we'll share resources, links, and everything mentioned within this space.
Actually, Edward, I will one more. We have some amazing jobs out there in product, in engineering, in design. So make sure to check our website, argent.xyz. We want more people to join the team. So now is the time. And also head of ecosystem relationships. So a lot of awesome jobs out there.
If you want to do cool things, join us. Thank you once again, everyone, and have a great day.